There's a silent war that begins the moment you cross paths with a narcissist. At first, they appear charming, magnetic, even irresistible. They know how to make you feel special, chosen, like you're the center of their universe. But behind that mask lies a hunger for control, a need so consuming that every word you say becomes ammunition in their game. And in this war, language is not just communication, it's survival. The wrong sentence can spark rage, the wrong phrase can trap you deeper, and sometimes the wrong word can make you lose yourself entirely. I remember the first time I truly understood this. A friend of mine, Layla, was in a relationship with someone, we will call him Kareem, who seemed, at least in the beginning, like the perfect partner. He was attentive, always texting, always complimenting, always ready with flowers and grand gestures. Her family adored him. Her friends thought she was lucky. But over time, the cracks began to show. The compliments became criticisms hidden under sarcasm. The constant attention turned into constant surveillance. And the charming gestures? They were weapons of guilt, used to remind her what she owed him. What shocked me most wasn't just how he treated her, it was how she reacted. Each time she tried to stand up for herself, to defend her boundaries, her words only seemed to make things worse. It was like she was speaking a different language, one that only gave him more power. That's when I realized, with narcissists, it's not just about what you say, it's about what you should never say. Psychologists often describe narcissists as fragile egos trapped inside a grandiose shell. On the outside, they act untouchable, confident, larger than life. But inside, they're brittle, terrified of being exposed, desperate for control. And because of that, some words become like dynamite. They can trigger rage, manipulation, gaslighting, or worse. They can pull you deeper into their toxic orbit. In this video, we're going to peel back that mask. I'll share with you the 5 things you should never say to a narcissist. And I won't just list them. I'll show you why they're dangerous, how they play into the narcissist's psychology, and what happens when you make the mistake of saying them. These aren't abstract lessons. These are truths born from real stories, lived experiences, and painful realities many of us have seen up close. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've argued with someone who twisted every word you said. Maybe you've been silenced by rage, by guilt, by confusion. Or maybe you're still trapped, wondering why your voice seems powerless. If so, I want you to know, you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not weak. You're not crazy. You're dealing with a manipulator who uses words as weapons, and the only way to survive is to learn the rules of their game. This isn't about winning arguments with narcissists. You'll never win because the game is rigged. This is about protecting your peace, your energy, and most importantly, your sense of self. Because with a narcissist, your words are never just words. They're weapons. And sometimes the most powerful weapon you can use is the one you choose not to speak. So let's step into the shadows of the narcissist's mind. Let's expose their triggers, their fears, their hidden vulnerabilities. And let's begin with the first phrase you should never say. The 3 little words that can turn a calm conversation into a battlefield. You're wrong. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Someone says something false, and the natural response is to correct them. You tell them the truth, you defend your point, you stand your ground. But with a narcissist, the phrase, "you're wrong," is like throwing gasoline on a fire. I remember my friend Layla telling me about one evening when her partner made an outrageous claim during dinner. He said he knew more about her own job than she did, even though she had years of experience and he had none. She laughed, lightly at first, and said, "No, you're wrong, that's not how it works." She thought it was harmless, just a quick correction. But within seconds, his face hardened. His voice rose. The room changed. "You're calling me a liar? You think you're smarter than me?" He spat. What followed wasn't just an argument, it was a full assault on her character. He pulled out past mistakes, twisted stories, and ranted until she was in tears. By the end of the night, she wasn't even sure if she had been wrong. That's the trap. To understand why, you have to see how a narcissist's mind works. Their ego is fragile, like thin glass covered in gold paint. On the surface, they look untouchable. But the moment you say you're wrong, it's like a hammer cracking that glass. It exposes their deepest fear, being seen as flawed, imperfect, or less than. And instead of facing that fear, they go on the attack. They don't argue to discover truth. They argue to destroy opposition. What's even more dangerous is how they twist reality. Say you tell them, "You're wrong, that's not what happened." They won't just defend themselves. They'll reframe the entire event. Suddenly, you're the forgetful one. You're the one who always misunderstands. They'll bring up old memories, distort timelines, or even invent details. It's called gaslighting, and it's designed to make you question your own memory, your own sanity. The more you try to prove them wrong, the deeper you fall into their web. You think you're standing up for yourself, but really, you're giving them exactly what they crave: a stage, a fight, a chance to dominate. And when the dust settles, you're drained, confused, and often apologizing for things you never did. Here's the hard truth. With a narcissist, you will never win an argument. Not because you're not right, but because to them, being wrong isn't an option. It threatens the entire identity they've built, so they will twist, deny, attack, and manipulate until you give up. And each time you say, "You're wrong," you hand them another opportunity to unleash that cycle. So what do you do instead? You learn the art of neutrality. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," you can say, "I see it differently," or "That's not how I experienced it." Notice the shift it done. Calm down. Two words that, on the surface, sound soothing. They're the kind of words you might say to a child throwing a tantrum, or to a friend overwhelmed with stress. But when you say them to a narcissist, you're not diffusing a storm, you're feeding it. To them, calm down isn't comfort, it's insult. It's a direct attack on their control. I'll never forget the night Layla shared with me the story of one of their worst fights. It started small, as it often does. A late reply to a text, a perceived slight, something trivial that spiraled. Her partner began raising his voice, pacing the room, listing every grievance he'd ever had. It was chaos. She sat there exhausted, trying to find the words to stop him, and then she said it. "Calm down."
That was the spark. He froze, eyes wide, as if she'd just slapped him. "Don't tell me to calm down!" he screamed, slamming his fist on the table. The rage escalated from there. Accusations, insults, threats. What had been a storm suddenly became a hurricane, and all because of those two words.
Why does this happen? Because narcissists live in a world where control is everything. Anger, for them, is not just an emotion, it's a weapon. It's a way to dominate, to silence, to remind you that they hold the power. When you say, "Calm down," you're not helping. You're telling them they've lost control. And that's the one thing they cannot accept. To a narcissist, being told to calm down feels like being belittled, mocked, or dismissed. Psychologically, it's called narcissistic injury, a wound to their fragile ego. Instead of hearing, "I care about your feelings," they hear, "You're weak, you're out of control, you're embarrassing yourself." And because they can't tolerate shame, they'll explode to flip the script. Suddenly, it's not about their rage anymore. It's about how you disrespected them, how you are the problem. This is the trap. You try to stop the chaos with reason, with calmness, with love. But what you really do is press the very button they're most desperate to hide, their fear of losing control. So what can you do instead? First, understand that you can't calm a narcissist down with words. You can't talk them out of their rage because their rage isn't about you. It's about protecting their ego. The best strategy is not to pour water on the fire, but to step out of the fire's path. You can choose silence. You can choose to leave the room. You can choose not to engage. These aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of wisdom. It takes incredible strength to resist the urge to say, "Calm down." Every instinct pushes you to diffuse, to soothe, to restore peace. But remember, with a narcissist, peace isn't built on your words. It's built on your boundaries. Layla eventually learned this. Instead of saying, "Calm down," she'd say nothing. Or she'd say, "I'll talk to you when you're ready," and walk away. Did he like it? No. He raged even more at first, slamming doors, shouting into the silence. But over time, she realized something powerful. His anger couldn't consume her unless she let it. By refusing to hand him the reaction he wanted, she took back her power piece by piece. That's the lesson. You don't owe a narcissist calmness. You don't owe them comfort when they weaponize rage. You owe yourself safety, space, and peace. And sometimes, the most powerful way to calm the storm is not to tell them to calm down, but to remove yourself from the storm entirely. Now, if saying calm down sparks rage, imagine what happens when you touch their deepest insecurity, the fear of being compared to someone else. That's where we go next. The third phrase you should never say to a narcissist. You're just like someone they hate. Few things pierce a narcissist's armor like comparison. To most of us, being compared to someone else might sting a little, maybe spark defensiveness. But to a narcissist, being told you're just like your father, or you sound just like my ex, is more than an insult. It's a declaration of war. Layla once told me about a moment when her partner was in one of his usual rants. He was accusing her of being selfish, ungrateful, never satisfied. She had heard it all before. Exhausted, she snapped back, "You're acting just like your father." She said the silence that followed was more terrifying than the shouting. His eyes went cold. His jaw tightened. And then came the explosion. He yelled, he cursed, he broke a glass against the wall. Hours later, he was still punishing her, not just with words, but with silence, withdrawal, icy stares. It was as if she had exposed a crack in his carefully constructed mask, and he couldn't forgive her for it. Why is this phrase so dangerous? Because narcissists build their identity on being special, unique, untouchable. Comparison, especially to someone they despise, threatens that illusion. It forces them to face the one thing they can't tolerate, the idea that they're not extraordinary, that they're ordinary. Worse, that they're flawed in the very ways they've sworn they're not. For example, if a narcissist grew up hating a parent who was cruel, weak, or abusive, being told, "You're just like them," awakens a terror they can't handle. They've spent their entire life trying to outrun that shadow, and suddenly, with one sentence, you've dragged them back into it. To them, it's not just criticism, it's identity theft. And what do narcissists do when their identity is threatened? They fight. They attack. They punish. You won't just get an argument, you'll get a campaign. They might dredge up old wounds, accuse you of betrayal, or turn others against you. Because in their mind, comparison isn't just unfair, it's unforgivable. Here's the twisted irony. Often the comparison is accurate. Many narcissists repeat the very patterns of the people they claim to despise. But pointing it out doesn't liberate them, it only fuels their denial. It makes them double down, blind themselves further, and punish you for daring to see the truth. So what's the alternative? Instead of saying, "You're just like your father," or "You remind me of my ex," focus on the behavior, not the identity. You might say, "When you raise your voice, I feel unsafe," or "When you interrupt me, I feel dismissed." Notice the shift. You're describing actions, not attacking their core self. Narcissists can still deny it, and they might react, but you've anchored your boundary in your own experience, not their identity. That keeps the focus on how their actions affect you. For most of us, the world is a shared space. We know that conversations, relationships, and life itself aren't just about us. They're about give and take. But for a narcissist, the world is a stage, and they are always the main character. Which is why the phrase, "it's not all about you," doesn't just irritate them. It cuts to the heart of their identity.
Layla once told me about a time when she and her partner were supposed to celebrate her birthday. She'd been excited all week, planning something small and meaningful. But when the day came, he turned the evening into his own spectacle, telling long stories about his achievements, monopolizing conversations, and sulking when the attention wasn't on him. By the end of the night, she broke down and said, "Why do you always make everything about you? It's my birthday. It's not all about you."
That single sentence shattered the fragile balance. He didn't laugh it off, didn't apologize, didn't even argue. He went cold. He sulked in silence for days, punishing her with distance, making her feel guilty for daring to want attention. He made her birthday about his wounded pride. And that's the dark paradox of narcissists. The more you remind them it's not all about them, the more they'll work to prove that it is. Why? Because at their core, narcissists are driven by what psychologists call narcissistic supply, the constant need for admiration, validation, and attention. They feed on it the way lungs feed on oxygen. And when you say, "It's not all about you," you're essentially cutting off their air supply. You're telling them they're not the center, not the star, not the sun around which everyone else orbits. And for them, that's unbearable. To a narcissist, relationships aren't partnerships. They're hierarchies. They must be on top. They must be the priority. So when you challenge that by pointing out their selfishness, they don't hear fairness. They hear rebellion. They hear disrespect. They hear a threat to the entire illusion that sustains them. This is why so many people trapped in narcissistic dynamics feel invisible. Every story somehow circles back to the narcissist. Every joy becomes their victory. Every pain becomes their suffering. Every moment of silence becomes a stage for their monologue. When you confront them with, "It's not all about you," expect a punishment of withdrawal, projection, or dramatized victimhood. The safer move is to name your experience and pull back the emotional fuel. Try, "When conversations always center on you, I feel unseen. I need us to share space." Notice the pattern. Shift from accusation to boundary, from identity to behavior. That keeps you safer. It also makes it harder for the narcissist to weaponize your words into ammunition against you. Practice small, clear phrases. Use timeouts. Use short, neutral statements. And remember, setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's preservation. Over time, these patterns change what you feed. You stop feeding the center stage and you nourish yourself. That simple shift can save you months or years of emotional erosion. The words sound empowering, don't they? I don't need you. To most of us, that's a declaration of independence, a reminder that we are whole on our own. But to a narcissist, those 4 words aren't just rejection, they're annihilation. Because if there's one thing a narcissist cannot tolerate, it's the idea of being irrelevant. Layla told me about the night she finally said it. After years of enduring manipulation, gaslighting, and control, she had reached her breaking point. He had accused her once again of being ungrateful, of never appreciating all the sacrifices he made for her. Exhausted, she looked him in the eye and whispered, "I don't need you." She thought it would give her freedom. Instead, it unleashed his darkest side. His face twisted, his voice dropped to a chilling calm. He laughed, softly at first, then louder, until it echoed like madness through the room. And then he began to tear her down in ways he never had before. He listed every secret she had ever told him, weaponized her vulnerabilities, mocked her dreams, even threatened to ruin her reputation. It was as if those 4 words had ripped off his mask and revealed the monster beneath. Why such a violent reaction? Because narcissists survive on dependence. They need to believe that you can't live without them, that they are the sun in your sky, the air you breathe. Your dependence is their power. The moment you say, "I don't need you," you take that power away. You show them that their control is fragile, conditional, breakable, and for them, that's intolerable. Psychologists call this a narcissistic collapse, when their carefully crafted illusion of superiority shatters. Instead of admitting weakness, they retaliate. They'll try to convince you that you do need them by tearing down your confidence. They'll remind you of times they saved you, guilt trip you for everything they've done, or threaten to abandon you so you'll beg them to stay. Dealing with a narcissist is like walking through a minefield. The wrong step, the wrong word, and everything explodes. You've now seen the 5 things you should never say. You're wrong. Calm down. You're just like someone they hate. It's not all about you. I don't need you. But this isn't just about avoiding words. It's about understanding the psychology of control and manipulation. Narcissists will always twist, always project, always fight to keep you in their orbit. The safest path isn't to change their behavior, it's to protect your own. So the next time you feel tempted to confront a narcissist with the truth, remember, the truth doesn't matter to them. Your safety does. Repeat these safety practices. Document, reach out, set simple neutral phrases, leave if you must, and build your network. These actions reduce risk and reclaim agency. Sometimes it's not what you don't say that saves you, it's what you do to keep yourself safe. The path out is steady steps, not grand speeches. Safety, planning, community. You've now seen the 5 things you should never say. You're wrong. Calm down. You're just like someone they hate. It's not all about you. I don't need you. These phrases might seem intuitive, even righteous, but with a narcissist, they're triggers. They expose insecurity, they invite weaponized rage, and they give them material to gaslight you. Don't escalate. Don't engage in proving them right or wrong. Do document interactions. Do set neutral boundaries. Do prioritize your exit and support networks. When possible, prepare short scripts. I'll discuss this later. I need a break. I feel unsafe. Remember, boundaries are not punishments, they are survival tools. Practice them privately until they become automatic. If you're in danger, contact local emergency services and trusted allies. If you can, connect with domestic violence resources or a therapist experienced in narcissistic abuse recovery. Maybe you've been there, silenced by rage, by guilt, by confusion. Maybe you're still trapped. If so, you're not wrong for feeling shaken. You're not weak. You're not crazy. You're someone learning hard lessons about manipulation and language. Healing is incremental. Begin with small changes. Limit contact, rehearse neutral phrases, keep records, assemble a safety plan, and reach out. Community is a lifeline. You don't need to face this alone. Help exists. And every time you choose your safety over their performance, you reclaim a piece of your life. Here are practical alternates. Don't say you're wrong. Try, I see it differently. Don't say calm down. Try, I'll talk when you're ready. Don't say you're just like, try. When you do X, I feel Y. Don't say it's not all about you. Try, I need shared space. Don't say I don't need you. Try, I need safety and space to think. Practice these phrases. Keep them short, neutral, and non-provocative. The goal is safety, not debate. Safety checklist. Document incidents. Tell a trusted friend. Have an exit route. Keep emergency numbers handy. Seek professional support. If you leave, do so prepared. Pack essentials, duplicate keys, important documents, and a charged phone. Find local shelters, hotlines, and legal clinics. Many communities have confidential resources that can help with safety planning and legal advice. Therapy and peer groups can help you rebuild self-worth and process the trauma of manipulation. Recovery takes time. Be gentle with yourself. Celebrate small wins. You are reclaiming your life step by step. Sometimes, survival begins with understanding. You've learned the triggers, the psychology, and alternatives. You've heard Layla's story, not as spectacle, but as a lesson. If you've ever faced a narcissist, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. And if you want more deep dives into the psychology of toxic relationships, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because sometimes, survival begins with understanding.